we've decided to stick to a subject tonight. And this thing of the core, it's still out there. It's still really prevalent. There's still books and there's classes and there's still videos talking about it. And I've never really kind of got it. I mean, I've got it. I know what people are trying to say, but it seems to me like a lot of this nomenclature, and I've been talking about this with Anna Barrett-Segurin as well, about the idea of nomenclature, the idea of using these terms, and how have we got here? So this is what I just wanted to sort of start off with tonight is just sort of go, well, where are we and where have we got to and how do we get here? Why a core? From something that is pretty static, i.e. a core, the core of the earth or the core of an apple, to this. Well, is that what we're doing? Is that what we're doing?
I have so many things to already say about it,
But I'm just this isn't my interpretation. This is me going, okay, what's the first image I see when I Google the core? There it is. There we go.
Right. I think that you're saying, I think like the foundation of it is that in the fitness industry, when we think of the core, we're always talking about muscles and the tone of our abdomen. But that's just the problem, is that we try to define the core as a muscle system. But here's the thing. You could plank, pike, twist, 100 yourself to death and never actually access what I feel is what I would call a dual neurofascial stabilizing system comprised of
hang on. Let me just write that down, Sue, because you use these long words and it upsets me. And hang on, I'm gonna write this. I got my notepad here because I thought Sue's gonna hit me with something, and I'm gonna go, what did she say? Right, write that down. Okay, ready? Okay, go.
Yeah.
A dual
neurofascial stabilizing system comprised of involuntary reflexes and mechanisms that function beyond just keeping our spine and pelvis stable. It is, in fact, the system that stabilizes everything. And when I say stability, I don't mean how well you balance on a Bosu ball. I'm talking about stability on every level: emotional, chemical, physiological, psychological, chemical, all types of stability. It's a bigger system than a muscle.
Okay, so that's a big leap outwards from where we're talking about. And I mean, where we're talking about in terms of that's not what everybody else is talking about. So what I want to, just before we get there, before we redefine it, this idea of something, the relationship between the words that we use and how we can sort of pick it apart and put it back together again, is the core, as it stands, forget what you think it is or defining it as that, is it a useful term in the lexicon of the therapist to help clients visualize their center? I mean, I've got people that go, oh, well, it helps me to visualize a center of point. And if it's a useful term that we don't attach much value to, why are there so many definitive articles that say this is what the core is and this is what you've got to be doing with it?
Right.
And then, finally, on that question, I'll let you run with it. When does it stop being a useful or helpful, if vague, term of reference and become something that's silly or potentially even harmful if we take it too literally? Have we got to this literal point? So usefulness.
Here's three points on that. So the first is what is the concepts of what is the core, right? So way back when I really got into neuroscience, right, I was bringing all this information back to the fitness industry, and I'd stand in front of a whole bunch of fitness people, and I would say, define the core. What is the core? And they would say all of the muscles that attach to the spine and pelvis. And I'd say, okay, how does it work? And it would be like crickets, like nobody could tell me how it works. So then in the mid 2000s, Pilates got into the fitness industry, and their education was a little bit better than traditional fitness. And so I'd ask the same question to a bunch of Pilates people. What's the core? And they would say transversus abdominis, multifidus, the pelvic floor, and the diaphragm. And I go, great. So now we actually have tangible muscle with definitions. How does it work? And I would hear things like, it's a dual contraction that you bear down with and it contracts. And I was like, How does that work? And again, crickets. So here's the problem, is that we're so desperate to define what it is, but what's more important is how it actually functions. And the reality of it is, again, if you keep focusing on just the muscle aspects, you're going to miss how it works and just focus on what it is. And again, you can plank, pike, and 100 yourself to death. You can crunch yourself to kingdom come. And the neurological components of this deep stabilizing aspect of the core may or may not ever improve at all. And in fact, you're exercising, those exercises could actually inhibit what they call the tonicity or the tonic behavior of the deep stabilizing aspects of these reflexes and mechanisms, because muscles that you can contract consciously are what we call phasic muscles, like rectus abdominis, right? So there's a mid-ground of education that's missing in how to define this system.
Sure.